So as married people, it's interesting to think about how a dynamic that plays out in our lives within a marriage where we can have things on our mind that are either we're worried about or we're troubled about or we're curious about or we're excited about. And we keep it from our spouse,
Mm-hmm.
because there could be some discomfort around it or I'm afraid of their reaction. But what's interesting is we think that we're keeping it from them, but are we really?
Yeah. I mean, we clue off one another when you can kind of tell when something's off between the two of us, right?
Mhm.
You can, maybe you can tell they're holding back. Something just seems missing. You just don't know what it is.
Right. And that's where we can kind of catch a disturbance in the force. Let's use that phraseology,
go.
I guess. But we're not quite sure what the disturbance is.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes the question of really about, am I protecting by not sharing what's going on with me? Or am I just willing to live within that gap between us?
Or scared of the reaction.
Absolutely.
I'd rather
That's
take
usually what
the-
fuels the
Yeah.
dilemma that we have in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it seems like we get caught in these scenarios where I don't think they have any idea what's going on of what I really want in my sex life or what I really want in my life with her or him.
Mhm.
But the reality, I think, is what if they do? They just don't quite know exactly what it is.
They don't know the details, but
That's where we're heading
know something's
today.
off.
And
Okay.
we'll set the stage with a voicemail that came in. And that will be what we will unpack.
Hey, Dr. Corey. Wondering if you have ever covered this topic on Sexy Marriage Radio. So the topic is pegging. I don't think that you have ever really talked about this sexual act. If you don't know, it's where a woman, the wife, will wear a harness with a dildo attached, and she would be inserting that into her husband and stimulating the prostate in that way. Yeah, just figured I'd ask you if you have ever discussed this topic. This is something that definitely intrigues me, and it is something that I have been exposed to through porn, and it is something that is still kind of there in the back of my head as just a turn on. Yeah, wanted to know your thoughts within marriage. Is this acceptable? Yes, no, and why? Just wanted to get your thoughts and see if you've really talked about this. I know that in one of your podcast episodes, I think it's titled "My Wife Found My Dildo," something like that. The husband had his wife discover a dildo that he had hidden, and that brought up a whole lot of thoughts from the wife with the husband. And yeah, just wanted to know what your thoughts are. If it is something that you wanted to talk with your wife about and something that you wanted as part of your sexual menu within your marriage, how is it that you would actually bring this about? It's a very vulnerable thing to want to talk to your wife about, and it just feels like this is going to be something that I am holding back and just not really discussing with her out of fear, out of shame. Because this came from porn, is that inherently bad? Yeah. If I had this desire outside of my viewing of porn, would this still be something that would be okay, or would it not be okay? Just wanted to get your thoughts, and yeah, love the show. Thank you.
So this isn't really about a sex act,
okay.
is where we're going to be going today.
Okay.
Right? Because what often happens, and the reason why he's even asked the question in some ways, the way he's framed it, I'm pretty sure you guys haven't talked about this specifically. And he's right. We've not had an episode specifically on pegging, but where we're going to go today is this isn't a sex act. This isn't just about the sex act that we're going to talk about.
Okay. So, it is one of the more taboo things.
Yes.
That we talked about on
the
the
word
show.
itself elicits a reaction from a lot of people because either they don't know what it is or it's an aversion to it or a very serious intrigue to it.
Yeah. So, but I guess I go to, how do you get past into what's actually happening underneath, right? Is there something deeper that he's looking for here?
Yes. And I think that's where we want to land, is because the taboo of this topic and the titling of this is real, and it's worth naming, right? It's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Because, but again, it fits within this element of what are the meanings surrounding it, which is where we land all the time in everything we talk about on this show. And what we try to do with our life too is we talk about the meanings of things more than the things, because that's where the power really resides. And so this is talking more about role reversal, prostate stimulation, vulnerability, being penetrated. There's a lot of aspects to this that apply. But the taboo is also a distraction. And what happens is it keeps people focused on the wrong question. Because even in listening to him, he's brought up two different dilemmas within this. One is where this thing came from for him, which was porn.
Yeah.
And the other is, should I bring it to my wife? Should I let her know what I'm really intrigued or curious about? And so this is about understanding that the act in and of itself is almost beside the point once you start to see what's underneath it all. What's really driving this? What's this really revealing in me? What's the real challenge I've got? Because this is an opportunity he has to really become more known in his marriage, which is the real conversation we want to have today. Because the dilemma, so dilemma one, because I kind of hinted at this just a minute ago. There's two dilemmas that I think of this, and I like framing things as two choice dilemmas, right? Where we can just boil it down, and I'm stuck with this choice or that choice or how I want to navigate the choices, right? I can do this or I can do this. And so dilemma one is he's asking and really questioning, does the source of where I learned or am intrigued by and was exposed to this make this bad?
Because the source was porn.
Right. Because he talks about, because he discovered it in pornography usage, is this bad? Right. So now it's recognizing just because the way he's framing this, he's already discredited himself.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Because just because something came from porn, does that necessarily mean it's bad versus it's just the conduit used to bring up something that has been around? You're prone to saying nothing new under the sun.
Well, that's Ecclesiastes, right?
Exactly.
I didn't make that phrase up myself.
Right.
Well, and in that regard, I mean, obviously I think porn is bad, but if someone was exposed just to regular sex, right? Sex is not bad, but if you were exposed to sex via porn, would someone say sex is bad because that's how you were exposed to it? I mean, I think that we probably have some listeners that say, well, yeah, pegging's bad because he saw it from porn. But if you simplify it down to other things that you may already be doing within your marriage relationship that you believe are good and is that how you... Well,
if we go
simplicity, so
absolutely,
I'm diving into something more than you want to dive into.
Well, but no, I think we can use this to kind of characterize part of the conversation, Pam, is if we go to the idea of how we get exposed to something being the determinant of if it's good or bad. Everything we get exposed to typically doesn't come. Well, let me rephrase. Many of the things we get exposed to, particularly in the sexual arena, likely have not come from really good sources. The locker room, other people, pornography, a book, some of those that because every single one of those has an agenda, skews things, has a humanness to it, a touch to it, a misinformation associated with it, something too, because it's coming from something fallen in and of itself. Because the Bible doesn't talk explicitly about sex other than the beauty of it, the power of it, and the danger of it.
Yeah.
Right. It does not talk about here's what sexual intercourse is. It says they laid with one another. They were known. They knew each other. The Hebrew has a lot of words that mean deeper things than we use in our English terminology for sure. But it's this idea of everything that we have that we're introduced to comes from something outside of ourselves.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
So if I discredit that desire just because of the source, wow, I'm already putting myself in a position of how do I embrace myself better? And that's kind of where he is right now.
Well, for him, it's the meaning behind it, right?
Absolutely.
This is where I saw it. So here's the meaning that ends up being tied to it.
Right.
Or memories or whatever that make it not as clean.
Right. Right. And because if you also look at this on the arc of us as sexual beings, when we grow, everything that we do sexually begins uncomfortably typically. There's at least anxiety surrounding it.
Sure.
Or uncertainty surrounding it.
Oh, we talked about that in the past, right? The first time you ever kissed someone, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of, oh my gosh, what is this? And so every next step is uncomfortable, anxiety provoking.
Right. And we grow in our ability to tolerate anxiety and unknown and unfamiliar and uncomfortable as part of our process of growing and evolving into people.
Sure.
And so when the source doesn't determine the worth, what matters most is what he does with this.
So how does he start to sort that out? So if the source doesn't make a specific desire bad, how do you sort through that then?
Well, he's got to separate the things out, right? Okay, what is underneath this desire rather than just the concept of being pegged, being penetrated by her? What's underneath it? What else is it? Is there a curiosity of how will this feel? Has there already been some self-exploration going on? And I like how this feels. So it's sorting through some of this to recognize what's my cleaner motivations of this, to give himself permission to want what he wants and separate out the shame that he's attached to it.
And there may be, my guess is there's listeners out there just assuming that if a guy wants pegging, it's a homosexual thought.
That will be a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of audience members, yes.
And so I guess I'm interested in your take that that's not really what that is.
No.
It doesn't have to be what that is.
No, and the reason so much judgment is placed on it is because anytime there's a reference to it, it's typically in the homosexual arena.
Okay.
Rather than over the course of my career working with couples over 25 years, I've had this subject come up with married couples more than one handful of times.
Yeah.
So it's an element of erogenous zones in us. It's an element of biology in us. There's, just as a reference to this, there was many getaways ago when I was talking and went through some of the basic biology of a male genitalia and the female genitalia. You use your hand to kind of show where things are. And for male genitalia, between the base of the penis and his anus is called the $1 million button, because that's how you can massage the prostate externally.
Mm-hmm.
And by adding a little pressure right there in the middle of orgasm, in the middle of a sexual engagement, to where it's not anal play, it's prostate stimulation. Well, that's what's happening with penetration too, is you're accessing the prostate much more directly. That's the way doctors check for how inflamed, how large, are there any concerns with your prostate?
Sure.
That's an exam that happens when men get over 50.
Yeah.
Or 45 even now. And so it's understanding these are just desires that I'm curious about maybe, or I really have desires for that are part of who he is. And so what's motivating what I want?
Yeah.
And when you can do that, it's important to separate out what's the shame I have around this? Am I truly okay with what I want? Or is there so much shame surrounding it? I've already stacked the deck that's what I'm delivering, is the uncertainty and the shame. And I want her, I'll be less likely to bring it to her, because if she rejects that, man, that's just piled straight on my shame.
Sure.
And I was wrong to even bring it up. I was wrong to even want it, rather than, no, I'm still curious about this. Then I can deal with the dilemma of, how do I carry this alone, or do I bring it to my wife? Because I got to settle it with myself first.
Well, and I guess by saying you're going to bring it to your wife doesn't mean it's actually going to happen.
That's another part, and that's another just step in the process.
It's bringing the spouse in on the conversation.
And the reason that's so troublesome is we can't unring those bells.
Yeah, meaning if she didn't know you had that interest, potential desire before, and now she does, she can't unhear that.
Right.
And so there's fear over how she may react, how that then plays out between the two of you over the coming days and weeks, and what that looks like.
Right.
I mean,
so he's wrestling with the dilemma in himself, because we can pick that up in the call in, right? With the ums and the ahs. He's not settled with himself on this. And so what really the better question before he brings it to his wife is, does he really want to be known? on that level, because that's the bigger risk. That's the bigger ask, actually, because I'm not going to sit here and say you should or you shouldn't on either dilemma of you shouldn't want this or you shouldn't do this or it's fine. That's up for everybody to decide on their own. But the harder question is he willing to bring his wife in on the deeper part of himself like that? Because it's so vulnerable. And it's also one of those that it now will be a part of their dynamic. I think of it in terms of, because the reference I will use, just because it's a much safer topic when it comes to our sex lives when I'm speaking, and we got dance around being known to this level, is if I have a real deep longing and desire to want to have sex with you on the roof, that's just like the spectacular thing I would love to do. And I've been hesitant to bring, this isn't new to you, by the way, but if I bring it to you, anytime we're driving and I'm just glancing around a neighborhood, you're going to be going, oh, he's looking at roofs. Okay. It immediately impacts the dynamic between us differently because there's a different meaning attached to it. And so you wouldn't look at a house ever the same.
Sure. That's a pretty steep peak. How in the world is that going to happen?
There's no way there's grip on that one to make it, but it's just that element of
harnessed in.
It's that nice.
Thank
but
you.
if we, the trouble he's in with this though, is when what I really want to bring to my spouse is contingent on their reaction to it. I'm waiting a long time to ever really be known.
Well, I guess that's one of the questions that, what does it mean to you? Or do you think it means to a wife when they find out later, when she finds out that her husband hasn't been bringing this to her, not to protect her, but because he's scared of her reaction? Like, how do you play that out?
Well, because then you're uncovering a deeper dilemma within her and the marriage that exists in all of us too, by the way, because it confirms a distance that she's maybe already picking up on. That's how we opened the show, of there seems to be a holding back in some areas of life. And this is just to put the caveat on this that's important. Most of this is stuff in our maps that we can't put a finger on what it actually is. We just feel it. We just sense it, intuit a little bit, right? Where it's just kind of like, and it kind of gives us this little bit of an edge to it or something. It's not huge. It's not a, wow, what's going on? I don't even know who you are. What's going, what are you not telling me? We're not usually picking up on it on a conscious level because one, maybe I don't want to go there because I'm comfortable with the level things are. Or two, I'm not in tune enough either to really know the distance that we may have in some areas. And that's the normal of every marriage.
Okay.
Just to put it out there, because we're always in the process of becoming known and knowing, because you're a different version of you now than you were when we first got married and 10 years ago and even 5 years ago. And man, even the last 3 weeks ago,
truly,
there's different things that are going on in our life that are making new elements of us being known to each other. And so what this can bring as a harder question for her is, if he didn't bring this to her, what else could he be managing?
Yeah.
And not bringing to me? What else is he afraid of? Because one of the things can be, she can hear that and be totally repulsed, which would be part of our fears of why would I bring it up? Or some of it can be, wow, I appreciate you being vulnerable with me. It's not ever going to happen. Or, wonder what it would be like to be in that kind of a position in our marriage. And now all of a sudden it taps into something with her. And maybe they never even act on the act itself. But there's a different power settling dynamic that happens from that. And you don't know where that might go, because that's the element of like how we started it. If she's already sensing something, possibly, how do I bridge that gap? Well, I go first and bring myself into it a little better. And it could even just be by going first of the idea of, I just let her know of, I've got some things I'm intrigued about, and I'm kind of dancing around the actual act itself.
Yeah.
But I'm moving towards it.
Yeah.
Because again, this is not a prescription of every spouse should tell their spouse every fantasy they've ever had in their entire life and that they still want and all. Because some of that I've got to deal with myself and realize, wait a second, is this pushing towards what's really underneath? That's how we tried to set this thing up.
Yeah.
It's not the act itself, it's what's underneath it.
Yeah.
And when I can settle myself with that, then I'm much more likely going to be able to handle when you look at Rubes as we're driving by and and I'm sensing you're judging me. I'm okay with it. It's like, you know what? At least she knows who I am.
Let them, let me. That's funny.
And so it's the idea of seeing it as there's not a flaw in what's going on here.
Yeah.
This is part of the design of a marriage, and for sure our sex lives within a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because we think we can hide things. We think we can keep things under wraps. But in reality, it's usually felt in some subtle pointing towards way, all the way up towards there's really a disconnect. And what I'll often do is blame my spouse for our disconnect rather than, wait, I'm getting in the way of being known because I'm not willing to be vulnerable and take the risk. Because I don't know if I want to unring that. I don't want to ring that bell. And if that's the case, then that's up to me to have to settle myself down to be okay not doing that then, and not think I'm missing out on something, because that's what I have to then confront in myself, because I hadn't had the courage to bring it forward to see what could happen that might take us down a path neither of us thought of, that wasn't even about this subject. It was actually just about being much more known, which I'm of the belief that's really what most of us want anyway in our sex lives with a spouse. I want the experience of being known and knowing them.
Yeah. And lots of times the experience isn't even what we think we want the experience to be.
Right. It's not based on an act, in a specific act, as much as it is the presence of each of us within it.
Yeah.
And within the moments, and the ability to know I can trust you with who I am, and you're going to trust yourself with who I am. And I don't have to try to navigate around and make sure tiptoe and all of this. It's more, you're going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of me. And we're going to try to take care of each other.
Yeah.
That's the better options of being known that we're talking to. And that's why this isn't just a sex act that we're talking about. This is actually the risk of being known and dealing with it in real time.